I had been with Bennett for 4 years and engaged for nearly 2. We met at a friend's wedding, clicked immediately, and what I thought we had was a strong relationship. He worked as a project manager at a large firm where his mother was in HR, and we lived together in his condo in San Diego. Once a month, Bennett traveled to Mexico for 5 to 7 days. He always said it was for major projects near Mexico City that needed his oversight. Since his company had international clients, it seemed believable. Each time he came back, he'd bring me little gifts. Tequila, handmade jewelry, sugar skulls I collected. I thought it was thoughtful that he remembered me during his busy trips. Looking back, there were things I should have questioned. For one, Bennett avoided social media completely. He had no Facebook or Instagram and claimed he valued privacy. Whenever I posted photos of us, he asked me not to tag him or share too many details. His reason was that his company worked with government contracts and had strict rules about online presence. It sounded reasonable, so I never pushed it. Things began to unravel after we got engaged. Last spring, Bennett's mom hosted a large engagement party for us. She invited coworkers, family members I hadn't met, and distant cousins. During the party, I overheard 2 of his coworkers talking about Bennett's trips. As soon as they noticed me nearby, they abruptly changed the subject. Later that evening, his cousin Brady got drunk and started making strange comments like, "So, you're the American girlfriend?" Followed by, "Bennett always liked keeping his options open." When I asked what he meant, he brushed it off as a joke. I told Bennett about it later, and he got defensive, saying Brady was a drunk who liked stirring trouble. From that moment, I started paying closer attention. I noticed he always carried the same small leather duffel bag on his Mexico trips. He was oddly protective of it, unpacking himself and putting everything straight into the wash. I realized I had never actually seen what was inside. Once I joked about him smuggling drugs. He reacted angrily, accusing me of not trusting him. His reaction unsettled me. On his next work trip, I did something I'm not proud of, but it turned out to be the right move. I searched the condo. In his office desk, hidden under bills and paperwork, I found a second phone charger, not for his iPhone, but for a Samsung he didn't own. I also found bills from a Mexican bank and a crumpled photo strip tucked in the back of a drawer. In the photos, Bennett was with a woman, smiling, kissing, and clearly in a relationship. Digging deeper, I discovered an envelope with a receipt for a wedding ring that wasn't mine. The receipt was from a jewelry store in Mexico City, dated about 2 years into our relationship, 1 year before he proposed to me. I photographed everything and put it all back exactly as I found it. I debated confronting him right away, but decided I needed more proof before exposing anything. If Bennett had been living a double life for years, I needed to know the full scope. When he came back, I acted normal. He kissed me, handed me a hand-painted ceramic bowl as a gift, and complained about exhausting meetings. I smiled and pretended, all while screaming inside. The next morning, while he showered, he left his iPad on the counter. I'd seen his passcode enough times to figure it out. That's when the truth fully came out. Bennett had another account under the name Bennett Alvarez, adding a second last name I hadn't known about. The account contained hundreds of messages with someone named Gabriella, love notes, photos, future plans. Gabriella wasn't a girlfriend or mistress. She was his wife. They'd gotten married in Mexico City 3 years earlier, while he was already engaged to me. Worse, in those messages, he told Gabriella I was his mentally ill sister who couldn't live alone. He described me as unstable, delusional, and confused about our relationship. He used that lie to explain why he couldn't move her to the US yet, saying my condition made it complicated. Their chats showed he had been preparing to bring her over once her visa was approved. Meanwhile, he kept postponing our wedding, using excuses about finances or career timing. The final blow: Gabriella was 7 months pregnant with his child. There were ultrasound photos, notes about building a nursery in their Mexico City apartment, and messages about the baby's arrival. At the same time, he was making wedding plans with me. As I sat in shock, a WhatsApp message appeared. Gabriella had sent a video of her belly moving as the baby kicked, with the caption, "Your daughter is dancing this morning. Only 8 weeks until you meet her. We miss you so much. I love you, mi amor." I screenshotted everything: messages, ultrasounds, their marriage certificate, photos. I emailed them to myself, backed them up to the cloud, and returned the iPad exactly where it was. This wasn't just cheating. It was a double life, with me painted as I called in sick for 2 days and researched Mexican marriage laws, Gabriella's social media, and everything I could find. That's when I discovered Gabriella's Instagram. It was public, filled with photos of her and Bennett together, at family events, vacations, their wedding. Her bio proudly read, "Baby girl coming June 2024. Scrolling her feed felt like watching my relationship collapse in real time. There were photos of them decorating a nursery during his supposed work trip. Wedding pictures from when he told me he was at a Denver conference. Family celebrations where he was introduced as her husband. The most recent post, just 2 days earlier, showed him kissing her pregnant belly with the caption, "2 more months until we become 3. Blessed to have such a wonderful husband and father for our little girl." I was sick to my stomach, but also furious. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had stolen years of my life. At that moment, I knew I had to act, not impulsively, but with a plan. Gabriella needed to know the truth, and Bennett's double life had to be exposed, not only to her, but to his family, his colleagues, everyone. I wasn't going to let him slip away with excuses. She asked if I had confronted Bennett yet. When I said no, she suggested something I hadn't considered. Let's coordinate. Let's not give him any warning. Let's make sure he can't talk his way out of this or create more lies. Gabriella wanted to fly to San Diego with her brother and confront Bennett in person, at his workplace, where his mother and coworkers would witness everything. I worried about the stress it might cause her pregnancy, but she reassured me her doctor had cleared her for travel and her pregnancy had been uncomplicated. Plus, her brother would be there for support. We set a plan. She and her brother Ramon would arrive in 3 days. She didn't tell Bennett, continuing to act normal in their conversations, saying she was excited for his visit the following week. My role was to keep acting like everything was fine at home. Those 3 days were the hardest of my life. I slept next to him, made small talk over dinner, and kissed him goodbye each morning, all while knowing exactly what he was. He had no clue I had spoken to Gabriella, or that I knew anything. One evening, he even took a call from her while we were watching TV. I listened as he stepped into another room, lowered his voice, and told her he missed her and couldn't wait to see her and the baby. I had to force myself not to react. The night before Gabriella's arrival, Bennett's mom, Nicole, called me. It was just a casual check-in about wedding plans. She asked if we had set a date yet, talked about venues, and mentioned she was looking at dresses. The conversation felt surreal. Did she know about Gabriella? Was she part of the deception? I couldn't tell, so I kept the call short, saying I wasn't feeling well. Afterward, I broke down. Keeping up this facade was exhausting. I texted my best friend Amanda, asking if I could stay with her once everything came out. I didn't explain why, just told her I was leaving Bennett. That night, while he slept, I quietly packed a small bag with important documents, clothes, and personal items and hid it in my car. The next morning, Gabriella messaged me that she and Ramon had landed, checked into a hotel, and would meet me at the coffee shop across from Bennett's office at 1 p.m. Bennett left for work like any other day, kissing me goodbye and reminding me to take care of myself. The normality of it made me sick. I spent the morning making final preparations. I withdrew the rest of my personal funds from our shared account. I organized all the evidence into 3 folders, one for me, one for Gabriella, and one for Nicole in HR. I also called our wedding venue and photographer to cancel our plans, accepting the loss of deposits. At 12:30, I drove to the coffee shop. My hands shook so badly I could hardly park. I ordered a coffee I couldn't drink and waited. Gabriella and Ramon walked in. She looked exactly like her photos. Beautiful, with long dark hair and a visible pregnancy. Ramon was tall, serious, and protective. When Gabriella saw me, her eyes filled with tears. We didn't hug or shake hands. Instead, she sat across from me, placed her hands on her belly, and said quietly, "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for telling me the truth." We reviewed the plan once more. Bennett's company occupied 3 floors of a downtown office building, with visitor sign-in at security. His mother, Nicole, worked in HR on the 1st floor. We decided to ask for her directly, show her the evidence, and request that she call Bennett to a conference room. We wanted witnesses, but also wanted to avoid unnecessary stress for Gabriella. At reception, I asked for Nicole, saying it was a family emergency. Minutes later, Nicole appeared. She looked concerned until she saw me, then smiled politely, clearly puzzled to see me with a pregnant woman and her brother. I introduced Gabriella as Bennett's wife. Nicole laughed at first, assuming it was a joke, until I handed her the folder. She flipped through the documents. The marriage certificate stopped her cold. Her expression changed instantly as she went through the photos and records. She didn't speak. She simply picked up the reception phone, asked for Bennett to come to conference room A, and then led us down the hall. Inside, we waited in silence. Nicole looked like the weight of everything had hit her all at once. Her eyes moved from Gabriella's pregnancy to me to the stack of documents over and over. Then Bennett walked in. At first, he looked confused. He saw me, then Nicole, and his face tightened. When his eyes landed on Gabriella and Ramon, his entire expression collapsed. For a moment, he looked like he might faint. "What's going on?" he whispered, though it was obvious he already knew. His 2 lives had just collided in front of everyone. Ramon stood, pointed at him, and said something sharply in Spanish. Bennett backed toward the wall, shaking his head and looking from face to face for support, but finding none. "You told me she was your mentally ill sister," Gabriella said. "You built a nursery for our daughter while planning a wedding with her." Bennett started stammering about misunderstandings and complicated situations, but there was nothing he could say that would make sense. I stood slowly, removed my engagement ring, and placed it on the conference table, sliding it toward him. "I think your wife might want to know why you've been engaged to your sister for 2 years, I said. Nicole looked at her son and asked one question. Why? The single word carried more weight than anything else said in that room. Bennett broke down, insisting he loved both of us, claiming he had gotten caught in something beyond his control and never intended harm. Every excuse made me angrier. He was still trying to present himself as the victim. Gabriella stood, placed her hands over her stomach, and told Bennett exactly what she thought of him in rapid Spanish. No translation was necessary. When Bennett tried to move toward her, Ramon stepped in front. Raised voices drew attention, and soon security arrived. Nicole, still processing what she'd just learned, told them it was a private family matter, but it was too late. Employees had gathered outside the glass walls. Among them was the company CEO, watching with a dark expression as the situation unfolded. Before leaving, I made one final move. I handed Nicole the third folder, copies of everything for HR. "Your son committed marriage fraud," I told her. "I thought his employer should know the kind of person they're trusting." We were escorted out, but not before I saw Bennett's colleagues whispering, watching him caught between his fiancé and his pregnant wife. In the parking lot, Gabriella gripped my arm. Her face was streaked with tears, but steady. "This isn't over," she said. "There are legal consequences for what Bennett has done to us both." Ramon, who had been mostly quiet, finally spoke. In careful English, he explained he was a lawyer in Mexico City. What Bennett had done wasn't just immoral, it was criminal. Bigamy is illegal in both countries. As we absorbed that, my phone buzzed. A text from Bennett. "Please let me explain. I love you both. I never meant to hurt anyone." Gabriella showed me her phone. He had sent her almost the same message. Even then, he was still try after leaving the office. We returned to the coffee shop across the street. All of us were shaking from adrenaline and disbelief. Gabriella cried while furiously typing on her phone. Ramon spoke quickly into his, and I kept letting out hollow laughs. We must have looked unhinged. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 23 texts from Bennett in 30 minutes. They ranged from desperate pleas to manipulative complaints to outright threats about his career. Gabriella rolled her eyes and showed me her phone. He was sending her nearly identical Spanish messages. Ramon finished his call and setting to play both sides. He had spoken with a colleague in international family law. The situation was complex because the marriages span borders. But one fact was clear. Bennett had committed bigamy. If we wanted, legal action could move forward. At that point, Nicole entered the coffee shop. She looked devastated. She asked to sit with us, and Gabriella nodded. Nicole didn't hesitate. She explained Bennett had already been escorted out of work and placed on immediate leave. His boss was furious, not only about the scandal, but also about falsified travel reports. Bennett had charged the company for flights and hotels while carrying on his double life. That alone was grounds for termination. Then Nicole did something unexpected. She apologized to both of us. Through tears, she admitted she'd had suspicions, but had convinced herself she was imagining things. Gabriella reached across and took her hand. A small but powerful gesture that broke me. Nicole asked to see the ultrasound photo. When Gabriella showed her, Nicole covered her mouth, crying, repeating, "I'm going to be a grandmother. I didn't even know." Nicole then turned to me. She said she would understand if I never spoke to the family again, but she hoped I might one day forgive her for not realizing what her son was doing. I told her she wasn't at fault. Bennett had deceived us all. We moved to practical matters. I explained I had already taken essentials to my friend Amanda's apartment and would collect the rest when Bennett wasn't home. Gabriella said she needed to return to Mexico City the next day on her doctor's advice. Ramon offered to stay one more day to help me. During this conversation, Bennett called Nicole. She answered on speaker. He was frantic, begging for help, saying his life was falling apart. Nicole's tone was firm and cold. She told him he had created this situation himself, and now he would face the consequences. Then she hung up. Soon after, I received an email from Bennett titled, "Please read. I can explain everything." I read it aloud. It was a rambling, self-centered message about how he never intended things to go so far, how he loved us both in different ways, and how lies had gotten out of control. He asked for a private meeting without all the drama. By evening, we exchanged contact details and agreed to keep in touch. Nicole hugged both Gabriella and me before leaving, promising her support. Ramon helped Gabriella to their car, and I headed to Amanda's apartment, drained. Amanda was horrified as I finally told her everything. She helped me unpack my emergency bag, set up her guest room, and ordered food. While we ate, I got a call from Bennett's cousin, Brady, the drunk one from the engagement party. He admitted he had tried to warn me in the only way he could without breaking a promise to Bennett's father. Apparently, this wasn't Bennett's first double life. Years earlier, he'd done something similar in Los Angeles and San Francisco. Serious relationships in both cities at the same time. When his father found out, he forced Bennett into therapy and swore the family to silence. They thought it was resolved. Brady apologized for not being clearer. I told him his vague hints had been useless, and he admitted I was right. He promised to make sure the family knew what Bennett had done this time. Amanda and I spent the rest of the night looking through social media for other women, but found nothing obvious. Then, close to midnight, I got a text from an unfamiliar number. It was from Bennett's father, Ralph. He said Bennett was at his house in a bad state and asked to meet with me. Amanda urged caution. I agreed, replying that if he wanted to talk, it had to be in public. The next morning, I met Ralph at a coffee shop. He apologized, then slid a check across the table, $50,000. He said it was to cover my wedding losses and emotional stress. It was clear he was trying to buy my silence. I refused, telling him the problem wasn't money, but the fact that his son had manipulated 2 women for years, and that past attempts to cover it up had enabled it to continue. Ralph seemed shocked at my refusal. As I left, he said Bennett was still his son, and he would protect him no matter what. Later, Ramon confirmed Ralph had made a similar offer to Gabriella. $200,000, supposedly for the baby's future. She had ignored it. Gabriella made it back to Mexico safely, surrounded by family support, and her doctor confirmed she and the baby were doing well. She planned to file for divorce immediately. When I returned to the condo with Amanda to collect more belongings, the place was a mess. Broken dishes, scattered clothes, empty bottles. While packing, I found a velvet pouch hidden in my jewelry box. Inside was an engagement ring I'd never seen, with a receipt dated 3 months out. Another proposal planned. As Amanda and I were leaving, Bennett pulled up. He blocked my car, begged me to listen, and grabbed my arm when I tried to move past him. Amanda intervened, threatening to call the police. His behavior was desperate and erratic. I told him firmly we no longer had a relationship and that if he didn't move, I would call the police. He noticed a box of framed photos I was taking and tried to stop me. The box fell, glass shattering, and I used the distraction to get in my car and leave. That night, Bennett showed up at Amanda's apartment building, pounding on doors until security removed him. He stayed in his car outside, sending messages that grew darker overnight, accusing me of ruining his life and endangering his child. Amanda called police when it escalated, and though they made him leave, without a restraining order, there wasn't much more they could do. The harassment intensified. Calls to my parents, threatening voicemails from Ralph, and even Bennett's friends pressuring me to reconcile. I forwarded everything to the lawyer Ramon had recommended. The next day, I met Reagan, Bennett's sister. She admitted Bennett had always fabricated different versions of himself and manipulated situations when caught. Their parents had taken him to therapy as a teen, but he always charmed the professionals. Reagan cried, admitting she had ignored signs of his behavior with me. I reassured her this wasn't her fault. During our meeting, I realized one of Bennett's friends was monitoring me. Reagan confronted him directly, proving she was sincere in distancing herself from Bennett's actions. Before leaving, she asked if I would consider meeting with both parents. I agreed to think about it, but only with legal guidance. That evening, Gabriella called in panic. Bennett was outside her family's apartment in Mexico City, refusing to leave. Police were called, and Nicole intervened by threatening to cut him off completely. He left shortly after. My lawyer filed for a restraining order, which was granted after reviewing the overwhelming evidence, texts, voicemails, and witness accounts. Gabriella filed bigamy charges in Mexico, and authorities flagged Bennett's passport, preventing him from entering the country. Weeks later, Gabriella delivered a healthy baby girl. Nicole flew to Mexico to support her. Bennett, denied entry, had a public breakdown at the airport that was recorded and shared online. Soon after, he was arrested for DUI after crashing his car. As for me, I moved into my own apartment, changed my name back, and started a new job. The final message I received from Bennett came from yet another burner number. Living in my car again. Hope you're both happy now. We are.